Professor Khairul Saleh Sahari, our second speaker, is currently the Deputy CEO of MQA since May 2019, responsible for quality assurance of the agency. Prior to the current appointment, he was the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Academic at University of Tenaga Nasional, an active assessor for accreditation of engineering program under the Board of Engineers Malaysia. He's a senior member of the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, and a chartered engineer registered with the Engineering Council United Kingdom. His research interest is in the area of robotic, mechatronic, artificial intelligence and control. Professor Khairul Saleh will provide us some update on the quality assurance of online learning in Malaysia. Professor Khairul Saleh, you may start your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Zafir. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to all viewers and listeners out there. It's a privilege for me to be representing MQA today to just share on some of the things that we have with regards to online learning. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see the screen.
We can see the screen.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to, similar to Helen, what I'll do is I'm going to just briefly talk about MQA, and then we'll go to the online learning and with regards to COVID and what are the steps forward for us in Malaysia. So MQA, similar to TEXA, is actually established under the Act. We have our MQA Act, and we were established in 2007. And similar to also TEXA, we are also the sole agency in charge of accreditation, quality assurance of programs in higher education. And we also have, we also maintain the National Qualifications Register and also the framework itself. So at the moment, we have about 16,000 programs registered in MQR. In terms of full accreditation, and out of the 16,000, roughly about 12,000 are active programs. And we have been collaborating with TEXA since even before TEXA was, established in 2011, EUQA at that point of time. So I think we have a good and a strong relationship with TEXA. And with regards to online learning, this is where we are slightly different from TEXA, where in Malaysia we have the general, what we call as the standard for program accreditation. We call it the Code of Practice for Program Accreditation, or in short, we call it COPA. COPA in general is for all types of programs, but for online open and distance learning, we have actually developed a separate standard, which we call as COPA ODL, which stands for Code of Practice for Program Accreditation, Open and Distance Learning. And this has been actually an evolution from originally guidelines to good practices back in 2011, upgraded to a Code of Practice in 2012, and we had the refined version 2 years ago in 2019. So the journey on ODL and on online learning has been quite, since 2011, and maybe prior to that as well. But in terms of development of the documents, we have been continuously working on improving the standards to actually guide the offering of ODL type programs. And based on the recent and the latest version of this guideline or the Code of Practice, it's actually developed based on the 7 areas, which is similar to the COPA that we have. It covers all elements from the program development, in terms of the body of knowledge, in terms of the learning outcomes. And then we have on the assessment side, the student selection, the support services, the academic staff, educational resources, which also includes the facilities and also the the budgeting, program management, and also the CQI, program monitoring and review. At the moment, we have 109 institutions offering ODL type programs in the country, totaling 336 active programs as of April 2021. Okay, and what is the the significant difference between this code of practice on COPA ODL compared to the conventional is what actually constitutes ODL. What is the definition of ODL from Malaysia's perspective? By the way, you can download this document. It's accessible through this website, this link in MQA's website. So what actually is the criteria of ODL program in Malaysia? We are looking at the program level, 60%, more than 60% of the courses offered are conducted via open and distance learning. So this is the condition in which what does it mean by courses that is in ODL in nature? So at the course level, we look at the student learning time, which is the SLT. At least 80% of the SLT delivered must be through open and distance learning. So there's two tiers of how we define ODL program. So at the program level, okay, the number of courses has to be more than 60% offered through ODL. And at what defines a course to be ODL is 80% of the SLT must be in ODL form. So this is just an example of how we can actually calculate whether a course or a program is ODL in nature. Okay, so and ODL can also be offered through all levels in the MQA. We have level 1 until level 8. So we can actually all higher education providers can actually offer ODL at all the levels in MQA. And the purpose of this COPA ODL, it serves many parties, namely, number one, we have the dedicated ODL higher education providers. Higher education providers which have been the license to offer dual mode, both conventional and ODL. And we also actually cater for conventional HEPs offering individual ODL programs, and also for those who are delivered, programs delivered with courses delivered through ODL. Okay, so this is actually to also support blended learning, which we allow institutions to mix and actually arrange their programs in terms of delivery to be blended up to 60% of the content of the program. And ODL is also promoting flexibility in terms of it can actually be arranged with other standards and other modalities as well. For example, in terms of the entry for ODL programs, we can actually allow open entry, appel through the recognition of prior learning. Okay, and in terms of credit transfer, we can also have ODL type programs to also go through credit transfer for MOOCs, through appel, credit transfer through recognition of prior learning, and the latest one we have appel Q as well. So all these can actually be linked to ODL. And it can actually be also in terms of programs on dual joint awards, double awards, okay, and it can also be linked to MOOCs, micro-credentials, and so on. And also ODL can also be linked to other types of modalities in terms of the delivery, such as the work-based learning, the industrial mode, apprenticeship, and so on. So ODL actually adds on to the flexibility of learning in terms of learning in the country, and hopefully all the higher education providers can actually leverage and actually mix and match and actually have a more flexible type of program offered across the country. And it also supports the Malaysian Education Blueprint, where we have the shift number 9, globalized online learning, and also shift number 3 on the nation of lifelong learners. And with regards to COVID-19, so I did explain that we have the COPA ODL, and actually all the programs offered by the country, by the higher education providers in the country must actually adhere to COPA ODL. But due to the pandemic COVID-19, we had no choice but to allow all the higher education providers to shift the modality to online learning. And we can see that in 1 month after the implementation of the so-called, at that point of time, movement control order back in March 2020, almost 95% of the institutions have already shifted to online learning. And by now, 100% of the institutions are running programs and in online mode, be it 100% or blended between online and also face-to-face learning. And MQA's response, we actually issued advisory notes, especially to notify and to advise the institutions on how to adjust the learning and the learning process, the delivery, the assessments, and so on. So that actually the key point here is that the quality must be intact, must be in place, must be adhered to the same standard, but the flexibility is given in terms of the delivery, in terms of the assessments, so that institutions and also students and also staff's welfare are well protected. And we also engage with professional bodies to ensure that they are also aligned with what we are also proposing to the higher education providers. And we have a list. So the latest one we just recently announced in 16th of August 2021. Okay, and the basic thing about the all these advisory notes is in terms of the guiding priorities is to support the government in fighting COVID-19, ensure the progression of learners, ensure quality for future career opportunity. And the guiding principles, it's actually to recognize this as a temporary measure in response to the crisis. And we are giving autonomy and accountability to the Senate Academic Board of the institutions, safeguard students' interests and staff's welfare, providers to keep proper records on academic adjustments. So we need all the HEPs to keep the records of the changes made during the pandemic. Okay, and this is also the role of the IQA, of the providers to arrange post-crisis interventions, including gradual remedial actions. And we will actually consider all of this in our audit visit to the institutions later on. And what is important in terms of all these advisory notes, as I mentioned earlier, so we see that the big framework is to actually ensure the welfare of students and staff, the progression, as well as to ensure that the students maintain high competitiveness in terms of employability in the industry. And we want to actually have also ensure that the quality quality of the programs offered remains intact so that we can have competent graduates. But we allow institutions to change the mode of delivery to online 100% if they want to. In terms of the arrangement of the student assessments, the grades itself, they can also have higher education providers can also modify the grading system to suit the needs of the current situation. We also allow the delivery to be made in a smaller bites in terms of micro-learning and micro-credential. And we also put emphasis on the IQA to play their role to monitor whatever changes and progress made by the institutions and the students. And moving forward, so what we have done after the pandemic and also recently is the fact that now, previously what happened was institutions who are not open and dual mode, they are not allowed to offer ODL type programs without having the same program in conventional mode first. But since December 2020, all institutions can now offer ODL programs without having the same program in conventional mode accredited first. So this is a boost to the institutions to offer new type of programs without having conventional mode to be offered first. And then flexibility in terms of what we have granted to the institutions during the pandemic. It is hoped that this flexibility allows HEPs to seriously consider programs in ODL after the pandemic is over. So they have now is as a test bed for them to actually test what are the types of programs they can actually offer online. And we hope that there will be more programs offered in the future with regards to ODL. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you very much. Back to you, Encik Zafir.